Thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar. We really appreciate it. I'm Mickey Dorsey. I'm the partner manager at FutureFeed, and I am thrilled to introduce you to Andy Paul. He is the CTO of Teramis. They have a CUI discovery tool that's made for CMMC compliance. So he's going to give an overview of their solution and then a demo, and afterwards we'll have time for Q&A. So Andy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Let's get here and go ahead and share. All right. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Excellent. Cool. As being said, my name is Andy Paul. I'm the CTO of Teramis, and what we're going to do today is just do a quick overview of what the product does, what the problem it's trying to solve, and then give you a demonstration of how it works and what it looks like in use. So, what is Teramis? Teramis, there was a very specific problem we were noticed, especially with the rise of CMC and the DFARS compliance, is that a lot of how you structure your compliance depends on knowing where your CUI is and being able to control CUI, and that all begins with develop good scopes. Ensure that the CUI that you know where it is when you're making some decisions on how to maybe structure your strategy. And then once you do that, make certain that the CUI actually stays within those boundaries. So that's specifically what we created Teramis to do, was to identify, define, classify, and then monitor that CUI across your operating environment. Um, this really helps kind of reduce your risk associated with non-compliance that comes up. So the way that it works is that we have two components to the software. It's an on-premise deployment, so we don't run into any compliance problems surrounding SaaS products and that sort of stuff. We deploy this in an on-premise deployment model. We have a monitor, which is the GUI. It's what we'll actually be seeing today. It's how you interact with stuff. And then there's agents, and agents are the things that are going to actually scan for CUI in the environment and report their findings back to the monitor. They don't send the CUI back. They just make a determination and send basically their thoughts on what they just looked at back to that monitor. So that the user interface, that again is the thing that we're going to take a look at here in just a minute, allows us to do all sorts of things, such as orchestrating a bunch of agents for large, complex environments, looking at our data, understanding where the stuff is, visualizing our data environment, scheduling scans so that we can do ongoing spillage management scans and see if something were to show up where it wasn't supposed to be at any times in the future. Um, and again, gives us API so we can integrate and pull that information programmatically over to any of the other solutions or tools that you may have to help achieve that single pane of glass. If you don't have something else, it's got its own monitor and visualization in it. If you are using other tools, it also has the API capabilities to feed that information back to the other places. So who should use Teramis? Really any organizations that handle CUI and are within the defense industrial base. There's two kind of big use cases on it. One's to understand where my CUI is and keep it within the scope boundaries where it's supposed to be for CMC compliance. It also helps me know if I don't have CUI, make certain that I don't obtain it. So you can kind of validate, am I level one, am I level two, just by doing a quick scan to see, do I actually have any of this data in my environment today? Um, so again, just kind of quick here on our key differentiators that are out there were purpose built for CUI. So some of the legacy products that you may be familiar with, they're more DLP. They're looking for lots and lots of different things as opposed to really specifically looking for CUI. CUI is a little more loosely defined and it's not got the specific patterns, right? Like four numbers, dash four numbers, dash four numbers, dash four numbers. That's probably a credit card number. Or sorry, yeah. So we kind of know that piece. And because we really targeted the one thing, we were able to achieve a really high accuracy rating. And by that, I mean not a lot of false positives. We'll go into that here, but in live environments, we've achieved accuracy rates, up in the 99.95% range in our high fidelity findings. We also cover a broad file coverage, really anything that can be CUI that you would need to identify, and it can be marked. These are things that are we're going to cover. So I mean, your CAD drawings, PDFs, images, scan documents, email. There's tons of file types that are supported in there. And then we also, again, after you find it the first time when you're getting ready, we also can do the regular recurring scannings to do the ongoing continuous monitoring. So, breaking those down into the kind of three main ways in which it's utilized. The first one clearly is scoping, right? If you're trying to decide what your approach is to going through CMMC, you'd really have two kind of major approaches. One is the enterprise scope, the other one is the enclave scope. Understanding how much CUI is a key component to that. If you have a lot of CUI and it's everywhere inside of your environment, you're probably an enterprise scope. But if you have just a little bit of CUI compared to the rest of the amount of data that you have, or if it's largely grouped together, you may be a really good candidate for an enclave type of an approach. And then even if you go with the enterprise, you still have to have those boundaries and the areas defined where the CUI is going to be. It helps us to understand what that is. What is it today where that stuff is? So that makes certain that I don't unneededly cripple my ability to do business by over scoping down my solution whenever I'm planning it. So, the first piece where we're really leveraging Teramis is to help companies do that scoping, to understand where it is today so they can do a well-defined scope within their environment. The next piece is the idea of migrating that CUI. So sorry, say you have you go with an enclave environment where you declare just those designated places. Well, just because you went and got your enclave certified doesn't necessarily mean that the CUI is in there. You're not really achieving the protections from like whistleblowers and that sort of stuff that you get whenever your CUI is actually located within that enclave. So you're where you told the government what you had assessed for it to be in. So when we do this scan, we find the CUI that you have, like say in the rest of their commercial environment, and then we give you the report so that you can migrate that into the environment. And when we do the migrations, what a lot of companies do is they'll use this ability to replace that source file with a tombstone. So instead of saying, hey, I'm just going to disappear the file so the next person comes behind, they don't know that that information exists. Rather, replacing that with something that says, hey, there was CUI here. If you need access to it, contact your manager and get access to the secure environment. That way, they know there was some more data, but they have to go and do something different to get to it. It's not in their normal use environment. And then finally is that idea of ongoing spillage management. So what we're trying to do is, keep the, that government customer, that prime contractor who, a lot of times you end up with two email addresses. You've got your CUI email and your non-CUI email, and they just send it to the wrong email. And now we gotta clean that up. So, or, users that are in the enclave accidentally, interact with it the wrong way. What we're doing is we're scanning and we're going through and we're continually scanning the places where it's not supposed to be to make certain that it is, if it shows back up, that we can find that and send it back. And there's some really good use cases with that. One, you can identify people that may, any holes in the way you're doing your flow because CUI keeps showing up where it's not supposed to be. You can identify opportunities for more training. Maybe some people just don't understand how to use your security protections correctly. So they're incidentally going and not using it right, or just people that are maybe just blatantly not using your stuff, right? People that you might need to have a conversation with because they're creating some liability inside of your organization by not using the tools that you put in place correctly. This gives you the ability to identify that, and so you know where to go look at to help make certain that you're not carrying more liability from like a whistleblower perspective than you otherwise would. Um, what a lot of people do, so with this idea of spillage management, too, and we'll show this in the product here in just a second, is we create what we call a spillage management policy, which says, hey, we're going to scan the high likelihood places. We're going to scan those really, really frequently. So The highest, if you got an enclave, the most or the highest likelihood place of spillage to occur is going to be the email addresses of users that have that over there. And then their OneDrives are going to be another high. So we want to scan those users that interact with CUI. We want to scan them, weekly or monthly or real frequently. Then maybe the other email addresses, well, we don't need to scan them as much because they're a lot lower likelihood. Maybe some network storage drives where they're not associated with government projects. We want to scan that stuff annually, but SharePoint sites associated with that, the commercial side of one of those projects, we might want to scan that, more frequently. It allows us to go through and set up a robust spillage management plan that's kind of custom tailored to each business, so that they're really managing this accordingly. Um, People typically will give themselves a period of time with which to remediate that CUI. So they would say, hey, I've identified it. I'm going to give myself 30 days to clean it up when it comes in within their spillage management plan. And this is really helping to take the idea of CUI just inadvertently showing up in a place that's not where it's supposed to be inside of your environment. You're treating this more like it's a vulnerability. Like, hey, that's just a vulnerability there. I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to move it into my in scope environment because I was scanned, identified, and I moved it over, as opposed to it being, a an incident that needs to be reported because now I've got CUI that's not, where it was supposed to be, and I had these really strict boundaries in the way I was controlling it, and I don't have a way to identify it, find it, pull it back in. That was part of my overall procedure, and within my SSP. Um, so those are the general use cases. What we're going to do now is we're going to hop in, we're going to take a look at the product, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So we'll spend the majority of this session here being able to address questions and make certain that everybody understands where we are. So get the share going again. And we will share this. So this is the Teramis agent, or the monitor GUI. So this is kind of the standard kind of uh, front page portal that's here. Again, we got some summary results, we got some findings. Of course, this is and this also shows that this can be ran on stuff that's small. Like this is just running on my laptop here, so it can be ran on something that's not super resource intensive. But if you've got large data sets, right, you can ramp up. You can have a bunch of agents that are running to help, get through that data more. Higher horsepower agents are going to be able to get through more data faster. The amount of agents that we use and the size of the machines that we put them on are how we get through that how we get through that faster than we otherwise would have. But again, we can run it for like smaller businesses can operate this with something as small as their local laptop and scan their environment. You don't have to have like a robust infrastructure in place to run it. The product, like I said, is broken into two kind of components. This is the monitor, but then there are agents. So you got my list of agents over here. We also have some tabs where we can see our agents. Again, I've got the one that's the agent that's running on this computer here. If you have 20 agents inside of your environment, you would see all 20 of them here. You can monitor kind of the health of them, and we can kind of see what all we've done with those agents, what's available to conduct maybe a next scan. Again, the monitor also orchestrates agents. So say we've got a 3 petabyte, SharePoint site, just tons and tons of data inside of it. One agent may take a while to get through that, but if you were to take 5 or 20 agents and point it at that, it's going to go through and chunk up that data into individual pieces and feed that to the individual agents and orchestrate how we're getting through that data to get through it a lot faster. One agent was going to take, a month to get through it. 4 agents would be able to get through that same period of data in a week. And it also does give you kind of real-time projected endings on each scan as you're going through it. The next component is the idea of targets. So we have basically targets that we're looking at what all we're going to scan, right? And here I've scanned a OneDrive and a sample Teramis agent test file that I've got on my computer. Each SharePoint site can be a target, individual users' mailboxes, all of Exchange, all of SharePoint. You can set up your targets, again, however makes sense for your organization in order to get through it. So again, this is kind of the high level of what we've got going on here. As far as out the box, the types of targets that we support, are going to be folders, really anything that you can mount from File Explorer. So if I can get there via my File Explorer, I can drop that path in and it's going to let me do it. It also supports Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive out the box, so we can again, these are authenticated scans it's going to do. We're going to register as an application inside of your Intra ID, and we can go in, we can do your cloud scans against Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive, kind of the standard set out the box. And then for more advanced type scans, third-party applications, anything like that, we have a variety of different techniques that are utilized to scan those areas. And so that's some of the stuff that either a professional services partner can assist with to make certain that you're able to correctly get to those and scan those and mount that accordingly. Um, the uh, the Explorer feature here. This is us visualizing the data that we've scanned. Again, this is just a couple folders on mine, but what we're doing here is that idea of scoping. It's where this is really important, like helping visualize just how much CUI I have and is it distributed everywhere, or is it largely grouped together? So if you see, your data map, and of course, it's a really small one, but a large organization, there's tons and tons of data points on this. The non-CUI can be shown or not shown when we're looking at this, but it'll help paint that picture of, hey, I've got CUI everywhere, or I actually don't have that much CUI everywhere throughout my environment. And maybe I'm more of an enclave versus that enterprise approach that we're going into. And that also helps show that grouping of data. Is it largely grouped together, or is the CUI just distributed absolutely everywhere? Once you're done, or now we're going into do the remediation activities, this thing can become your remediation plan. We can export from any layer throughout the tree, basically a CSV of all the files from that point down. The way I remediate CUI that's located in SharePoint is different than how I remediate CUI in emails. So it can allow you to kind of grab the batch of stuff that you're going to remediate, go get that to an administrator who's going to go through it and move those files to where they're supposed to be. And then you rescan and you see the number of lights going down inside of this environment as you're continuing to clean it up. And then something new shows up, boop, there's the spot. You can see where it is inside of this environment. So coming back over again, we can manage all of our agents. If we have a bunch of them, we can see the full status of them here, right? The agent on my computer is not currently running a scan, but I can, it's saying that it is available, it's open, it's idle, it can be used to conduct a scan. If you've got 50 agents, you'd have the status across all of them. In here, our target list, we've got kind of start times and end times. It's going to track across everything. It's going to give us kind of running stats here. And again, we can download from any different points throughout the monitor the information that we have. So if we wanted to know all the targets that we've scanned, we can quickly get that information to compare it to the SharePoints. If we're not doing a SharePoint scan all, or we want to just do individual targeted SharePoint sites, right? We can keep up with where we are. Um, you can also see that it's pretty fast. We just look at these results, right? 7 GB just running off my laptop took 13 minutes to run. That OneDrive file there took a matter of 30 seconds, right? So it can get through pretty quick, and that's using just my laptop's horsepower. Of course, you start putting this thing on bigger server type hardware, and you can really start achieving some really large speeds to get through large data sources, maybe more of an enterprise environment. I'm gonna hop down here to this other idea. So we talked about that spillage management plan earlier. So this is where we're building that out in. So you can set up really kind of the world's limit on how you want to do that. If you've got a bunch of different um, bunch of agents that are out there, this is where we would go in and say, hey, I want to scan this location every week on the first Wednesday of the month, and I'll do monthly scans, or maybe these batch of things I want to scan quarterly, and then this stuff over here, annually is sufficient for us to make certain that we're scanning our entire environment. Again, right, we're trying to make certain that we don't have any kind of qui tam or whistleblower risk in our environment. So we're just constantly looking for it, and we're addressing to make the best use of our resources, according to how we're going to go about and schedule those scans. This makes it a set it and forget it model, right? We're going to go in, configure all of our targets, configure our scans. When a scan gets done, we're going to receive an email. Hey, your scan's done. There was findings in it. We set up the reporting that comes out. And now we're going to just let it run, let it alert us once CUI shows back up inside of the environment after we've got it all remediated. Um, so if that's really it, the product's not super complicated, right? Two components, got an agent, and we've got the monitor. The monitor helps us orchestrate everything throughout it. So I will stop here, and I guess we'll start opening it up to questions.
Great. I see that Jimmy Perez has a question. I'm going to go ahead and let him ask this. Okay, Jimmy.
You're on mute, Jimmy.
Jimmy, you're on mute. Hmm. Might be having some issues there. So we do have some in the Q&A. Related question is, what does one do when the prime or the DoD POC does not properly mark the CUI delivered?
Yeah, so that's a great point. That is a thing that I probably should have showed a little more while we were in here. So I'm gonna pull
Well,
this
do you
here.
want to get back in? You can get back into it and show
Mhm.
us then.
Absolutely.
So that is
All
a
right.
good question.
So when we went back and we look at our targets, so we have stuff over here, right? If we'll stood up here so we can see it. So we have this idea of criticality. There are three types of criticality that exist within the findings. Highs, these are properly marked CUI documents. These are your kind of clear and present danger. This is the stuff that you absolutely have to move. Like that's a document correctly marked. You scan the spot where it's not supposed to be. You got correctly marked CUI in there. That's a high finding. There are two other findings inside this, and that's where the high fidelity rates are coming from. We're identifying that stuff that's appropriately marked correctly. We're not identifying, the word circuit because it has CUNI in it on a PDF drawing, right? That's a circuit drawing. We're not identifying those. The next one are mediums. So mediums, these are things that aren't properly marked CUI, but they have indications that they may be. So these are things that may need some manual review. Some companies go through and they'll just take, out of abundance of caution, I'm going to move all of my mediums and my highs. Some companies want to review the mediums kind of piece by piece. So what a medium is stuff that maybe has limited distribution marks on it. We've got ITAR type markings inside of there. Those so like kind of out the box, that's the way that we're going to identify stuff that's not properly marked, but it may be CUI that you need to go take a look at, maybe mismarked. There's also a concept of lows, and these are things, again, it's not properly marked CUI, but we also don't think it is CUI. This is common across things like the DFARS clause that's got a lot of like language and they're talking about CUI. We're going to identify, hey, this thing's talking a lot about CUI, but it also looks like the DFARS clause inside of your contract. This isn't CUI. So we still track that stuff, put it over there in the lows. It's up to you to decide if you want to engage with the lows. Most companies primarily will engage with the highs and mediums, just kind of review the lows. And yeah, that looks like training documents. That looks like stuff that's not really going to be CUI. So highs, properly marked CUI. Mediums are things that aren't marked, but they have indications within the file itself that it may be CUI or something that it may be rising to something that needs to be investigated. Lows also have some information in it, but we don't think that is CUI, just for you to kind of determine based off of your risk which way you want to go. There's also some really interesting kind of use cases as you start using the product to help you identify some of the other stuff. So one of the big use cases is derivative CUI. Well, the government gave me a piece of CUI, and then I created this other drawing over here, but maybe did somebody forget to mark that piece of CUI? So when you have your first result, like here's where my CUI is, your derivative CUI can typically be identified as the things that are like located near that original piece of CUI. You can't have derivative CUI without having the original piece of CUI that you derived it from. So that's the idea as well. Once you find your CUI, you know where to look for those other things that may not be properly marked CUI, so that whenever you're going in, some companies will take a risk mitigation approach of, hey, the CUI was located in all these folders. You know what? I'm going to just move that entire folder instead of just that file to make certain that I'm moving the stuff that should be protected as CUI, even though it may not be marked CUI. Really kind of helps you. Again, these are all organizationally defined parameters, right? You're familiar with that concept. How you go about addressing your risk is kind of up to you, but there's a lot of kind of creative ways that you can leverage knowing where your CUI is to really address questions surrounding even stuff that maybe wasn't appropriately marked as CUI. Again, we have the three categories of which trying to find unmarked CUI that probably should be your ITAR and export controlled language plastered all over this thing. We also have an idea of custom scanning. So this is where we can come in and we say, what are your project names? What are your your contract numbers, the stuff that we would want to look for to say, hey, this is a drawing that's talking about that building or that part, that widget that is associated with that CUI contract. Custom scanning is not something, so again, it's custom to your environment. So it's not going to be in the out the box version that I have here. These are things that we're going to go and help you put that inside the environment, which is available. Again, we like to leverage that via professional services instead of having then customers do it. Custom scanning can become, if you've ever tried to do this like Purview, you can get garbage in, garbage out real easily when you're starting to do this type of stuff. So we like to have trained engineers that help craft the signature sets for your custom searches. So that's why we don't just bake it into here as like I want to search for this word or this little regex string as something in the GUI, but rather that a professional can help you craft those to look for custom things that are inside of your environment, which of course also allows you to open this up to non-CUI uses as you're going through and scanning for specific things inside of your environment. Everything associated with contract number, whatever, is possible and a use case inside of the Teramis solution.
Okay, next question. Are the agents deterministic? Does it find artifacts that are CUI without CUI markings?
Yeah, so they're not, what they're not is AI. There's no AI that's inside of the way that this is processing. So they are deterministic in that they're going to open it up, they're going to evaluate it, but they're doing it leveraging a signature set model, not like an AI machine learning model. The DoD is really frowning on the idea of AI. You couldn't use cloud-based AIs anyways without them being FedRAMP, so we can't feed the data someplace. Of course, that's why we're keeping that here. So it is. We've baked into the language basically every piece of CUI guidance that's ever come out from any given agency, from NARA, from the DoD, right? All the stuff, if it's appropriately marked CUI, it's an indicator it's looking for, and then custom scanning and this idea of mediums and lows to help you find maybe some of the CUI that wasn't actually marked as CUI, but you need to continue to treat that way.
Okay. And then the next one, is there a remediation flow after you find the different criticalities, i.e. distribute the review cases across different people?
Yeah, so what this product doesn't do is the actual remediation. We identify it and give it to you to say, hey, here's what you need to do, and we give it to you in a way in which you can pretty easily manipulate it. How you go about moving, migrating data inside of your environment is really kind of up to your IT administrators. And again, because you have so many different types of sources and targets, we're going to say, hey, here's your world of CUI downloadable as a file path name. Like here's the target. So that you can feed that into a PowerShell script. And then that PowerShell script can handle the idea of, hey, I'm going to download it to this machine. I'm going to connect to, like, take a SharePoint one, right? I'm going to log in. I'm going to download the file from the source, and I'm going to connect to the destination. I'm going to upload the file there. Then I'm going to take a file hash of the file in the destination, and I'm going to go and I'm going to check the file hash from the source. I'm going to make certain those match. I didn't corrupt the file as I move it over. Once I've checked that, then I'm going to go and I'm going to delete the document out of the source. I'm going to replace it with a tombstone file that has the same file name as that original file. That concept's very easily scriptable. It's something that your admins can do inside of your environment. Again, it's also, if they can, professional services providers can assist you with working through that process. Again, the way you do that inside of SharePoint is different than how you would do it inside of Exchange. So typically there are different people that you distribute those different sources to do the remediation, and then the Teramis operators watching that, making certain that each person that it went to is actually doing what they were supposed to. So I can see that, oh, look, my SharePoint went away, but the Exchange still hasn't been remediated. Do I need to make certain they know how to go about, extracting emails from, purging CUI emails out of somebody's environment? Maybe I get it, a purview administrator, and they're not very familiar with that component. So um, the what we're doing is we're giving you the reports so that you can go and create whatever remediation flow makes sense on your side to feed that into.
And how do you determine what AutoCAD files or PDF files are CUI?
Yeah, same thing, right? So we fully support PDFs and AutoCADs. Again, we're going to go through and run it against those signature sets, and we're going to give you a fidelity, like kind of criticality marking on it. If it's got a CUI header and footer, it's got LDC blocks on it. These are going to be your highs. These appropriately marked CUI. Things that maybe don't have the header and footers, but they got the limited distribution blocks. These are going to be mediums. Like, hey, this is something that looks like this is mismarked. You probably need to go take a look at this to see if it needs to be marked. The idea too is fix your mismarked CUI, right? So that's why it's in that separate category. You can't go in and correctly mark CUI if it isn't, appropriate, if you don't go in and actually touch and modify that file. Some other things that we've had customers do that's really kind of cool, creative pieces is they'll take that medium, like, oh, this is actually all stuff that never had the headers and footers put on these files. They can then create some workflows where they'll have a tool that automatically does it, and they'll move a file, into a folder, and that triggers, purview labeling or something like that to put these markings on, and then the script moves them right back to where they were at the beginning. These are all things that are possible. It really depends on your specific use case. And what we're trying to do is enable those professional service providers or the IT admins inside of your environment to help you come up with the best way to do that. Again, you can't do it if you don't know where the CUI is. As soon as you've got the list of that, you can really get really creative in how you correct this stuff and make certain that you're staying compliant with the rules.
Okay. How about data files that cannot contain headers due to program constraints, and the same for file names when specific file name formatting are required? Is it sufficient to put these in defined enclaves?
If you're just talking about your general handling of CUI and how you're going to handle CUI, that's not really the product of what we're doing here. That's, again, kind of more programmatic on your side. It's important that you understand what's within your contracts. Every contract's going to be different. The general rule is you have to mark CUI according to the NARA guidelines. But do you have specific requirements associated with your individual contract? You absolutely can. And so it's kind of one-off situations would have to be done pursuant to whatever you've agreed to. Again, that's why we're just helping you identify the stuff. We can help you with custom searching to identify stuff that is associated with that, but what you're supposed to do to be pursuant to that, I'm not going to be able to tell you because I don't know the specifics of your contract, right? That is something that you would have to work out.
Can Teramis handle signatures or other attributes to key on this type of file?
Yes, that is specifically what we're doing. Is we're running through and taking a look at all the attributes of the file, right? It can be stuff in the file names. It can be stuff in the what's inside of the file itself. We're opening it up. We're running tons and tons of these different signatures to help formulate that. Hey, does this actually look like CUI or not? Inside of it, and then multiple hits are how we get up to these like high confidence findings. Where if it only hits one of those, maybe that's a medium or a low because we're not seeing enough of it in there to give the agent a high confidence that that probably is CUI.
How about checksums to identify a particular file?
Yeah, that's another great thing. So when we go through, if I wanted to rescan, it's another great point that I forgot, probably should have brought up here. So you go through and you scan your entire environment the first time. That scan takes forever because you got petabytes worth of data. It just simply takes a long time to open every file and look at it. It's an impossible task with humans doing it. Even when machines doing it, it's heavy, it's resource intensive, but you got to get through it that first time. However, what we do is we keep a track of the file hash of every single one of these files. So we have this option called use history. What use history does is says, hey, I'm going back, I'm going to rescan that environment. If the file hash has not changed, I know I don't need to scan that again because I've already looked at it in the past. So now when I do these subsequent scans, the ongoing spillage management scans, all I'm doing is looking for any file that doesn't already exist on my file hash repository. So if somebody went in and they modified one character, that file hash will change. That'll be rescanned. If they modified it, got to rescan it. It may not have been CUI before, and now it's been promoted to CUI. Or inversely, they may have removed the CUI markings from it, right? It's no longer CUI. Same thing happened. You just remediated it. It's all good. We go and rescan. We'll pick that up. If you wanted to say not use history and do a rescan from the start, you can easily turn that switch off, and then we're going to rescan every single file again instead of skipping the files that we've already looked at and we already have a file hash on.
Okay. Use case is I get a data file that is CUI, hash the file, and then look for any place that has the file hash, which would indicate that the file may be put in a place where it shouldn't be.
Yep. So that same idea of tracking your duplicate files, we absolutely do that as well. So when you do the download CSV, you will actually see every place that file hash, that duplicated file shows up. It's just clearly right there inside of the CSV download. That file is located 4 locations. Here's that same exact file hash in all 4 of those locations. This can help with deduplicating your data. Some companies want to use that. The list of every single file that's in there is part of the output that comes from this CUI hit that's in there will show up in all 4 of those locations. Because again, another thing that happens is if you just remediate one of those 4, doesn't help you, right? You got to get rid of the CUI everywhere it's not supposed to be. So you actually had to move it in all 4 places. That's why this kind of rescanning after you do your mitigation to make certain that you got it all. It's also important. And that's why the scanners aren't meant to be a one-time deal, but rather a continuous, we're always scanning our environment to make certain that we found all of our stuff. Especially if you start using custom scanning too, maybe you got a new contract or want to add that in, so you keep rescanning the environment.
Okay. And it looks like it's one person, it's anonymous who's sending, these are great questions, so please continue. This is really good. So this person said, got it, but can I specify any file with that hash as CUI and then identify it as a problem using your dashboard when it is found in places that shouldn't have CUI?
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty specifically what I'm saying. So that is what we would do with a custom signature, right? You would say, hey, I want to like identify this particular file. That is something that we would just add right in as a custom signature separate. You want that? I want that to show as a high. I want that to show as criticality Bravo, something different, right? That would come inside of your that custom scanning capability.
Okay. And any more questions? That was it in the Q&A box. Anyone else? These were really great questions. We appreciate this.
Mhm.
Well, it doesn't look like there is. Andy, do you have any closing comments that you would like to share with the group?
Yeah, no, the what we're trying to do is just make certain that we keep people from accidentally running into these problems, right? Every time you hear about one of the whistleblowers, like, I didn't know that was over there. This is how you can really keep. You went through to spend all this money becoming compliant with CMMC. You did all this, all these people trained on it, and then the users don't put the CUI in the right spot. And like all that, our weakest link's always the human user. This helps us make certain that we are keeping the CUI where we think it is, and that we're really getting that return, that reduction in liability that we should get by achieving CMMC. Went through all that, paid for these assessments. Did we want to make certain that we're not just still carrying risk, that the DOJ still want to come out of us because the CUI is not actually where we thought we put it.
And actually, John has a question.
Hmm.
Okay, John.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Uh, Sorry, I might not have caught if you had brought it up, but would you be able to talk a little bit about your pricing structure or your yeah, pricing model?
Yeah, absolutely. And then Mickey may also want to be able to talk about this because I believe they can get it straight from the future feed.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and there is a question if we're going to send a follow-up email. We are. We will be following up with everybody. You'll get a recording of this webinar. And also, you can always reach out to us at sales@futurefeed.co. And we are happy to connect you with the Teramis team.
Mhm. Yeah, and I believe it's available right there inside the marketplace if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, you can purchase Teramis on our website.
Yeah, so you can see all the different types
Mhm.
of purchasing models, right? There's different for enterprise, of course, costs different than small businesses cost. So you can see all that stuff right there inside the marketplace.
Great.
And I will also say, while we're going through it, I just deployed this back on. It's got a new computer, so I had to re-put this back on here. It is deploying of the software is 3, 4 clicks. It's super easy. So it does not take a ton of like IT programmatics to get it up and running. Running your spillage management plan may, if you have a big complex organization, not gonna lie, you may have to like be trying to remediate stuff and wind chills and master controls and like all these kind of crazy document repositories you may have that can take some time, but at least you know what it is that you have to do. The getting the tool and getting the data is not that complicated. We can get that to you pretty quickly.
All righty. Are any more questions? Again, if so, please reach out to us, sales@futurefeed.co. We are happy to answer any questions, direct you to the Teramis team. But thank you all so much for spending your time with us today. We really do appreciate it. So again, Andy, thank you so much for this fantastic presentation and for answering all the questions. And I hope you all have a fantastic afternoon.
Thank you, Mickey. Thank you, everybody.